Tank Month at the Army Painter continues, and in our last video we showed you how to paint a Space Marine Gladiator tank for arguably the most popular tabletop war game in the world, Warhammer 40k. Today we're painting up a Sherman tank from Warlord Games for an indie game developed by factory team member Uncle Adam of Tabletop Minions along with his friend, the almighty mini painter himself, Vince Venturella, called Tanks for the Apocalypse, that you could find in their zine called Snarl. Here's more about Tanks for the Apocalypse from Adam himself.
Tanks for the Apocalypse. The July 1945 nuclear bomb test has done what the scientists hoped it wouldn't: ignite the atmosphere and kill most living things on the planet. You're one of the survivors. Lucky? Unlucky? Hard to say. And you lived near the Lima Locomotive Works in Ohio, where they made all of the M4 Sherman tanks for World War II. Now you have one of those tanks, but you're not the only one out there. To play, all you need is a 28mm scale M4 Sherman tank kit. You can check our blog for some suggestions, and some wilderness or post-apocalyptic terrain and dice and stuff, and you're ready to destroy your friends. A great time with 2 to 10 players.
I mean, I'm in. And so is Stefan, who jumped at the chance to convert his very own Sherman for the Apocalypse, using the model kit from Bolt Action, some odd bits from his pile, and some chains. Using our superglue and assembly tools like clippers and hobby knife to totally tool up and customize his post-apocalyptic tank. One of the cool things about Tanks for the Apocalypse is that you have the total freedom to personalize your tank however you want. Stefan's adding some more battle damage using our miniature model drill to create some battle damage bullet holes before it's time to prime our tank. Which started with a coat of Warpaint's Air Matte Black Primer, before applying a Zenithal highlight of matte white through the airbrush. The Warpaint's Air range is the industry's first truly airbrush-ready paint, meaning you don't need to thin it and it's ready to use right from the bottle. No additional thinning or pipettes necessary, which really makes using these paints easy and saves loads of time. Now, just because you don't have to doesn't mean you can't thin the paint, as Stefan is doing here by using our 2-in-1 thinner and flow improver, the airbrush medium, to apply a glaze of army green through the airbrush over the Zenithal base coat. By thinning the paint, it allows a lot of the shading and highlights from the base coat to show through. With the base color on the tank done, we'll block in some additional colors using Speed Paint Gravelord Gray and a Wargamer Regiment brush. We'll apply this to the spare tire on the tank. Why a tank with tracks has a spare tire, I don't know, but hey, it's the Apocalypse and anything goes. Use that same color to base coat the remaining metal bits and pieces on the tank before applying some obsidian skin from the Warpaint's Fanatic range to the tank tracks and other details on the miniature. We'll add a pop of color to the signs on the turrets with Demigod Flames, which is the darkest yellow from the yellow Flexible Triads. If you don't know, the Flexible Triads can be found at your friendly local game store on the Warpaint's Fanatic rack, or you can purchase them all together from our web store with the simple click of a button. We'll highlight with a bit of Fiendish Yellow, another member of the same Flexible Triad. We're just doing a rough and stippled highlight here, followed up with an additional highlight of Warped Yellow. Next, we'll thin down some matte black with a bit of Warpaint Stabilizer Medium. Thinning it down will allow us a bit more control for these more detailed base coats like on the trim of the signs, and especially for freehanding like Stefan is doing here. What's that he's writing? D-A-D-A-D? Dad? Oh, dead end. Nice. It's a dead end sign. Well played, Stefan. Grab some carnelian skin and begin base coating your barrels. This Fanatic formula features insane coverage benefits, which are well on display here. Use some more matte black to finish off the remaining black details. It's really up to you how you paint your tank for this standalone game. There's no standard issue at the end of the world after all. Oh, and more freehand, this way to Main Street. Grab your best sponge and some Brigandine Brown, load your sponge with a bit of the brown and lightly dab it on the surface and raised edges of the tank. We're doing this in lieu of an edge highlight. This is a super fast, easy, and effective way to define the edges on tanks, and it looks super realistic when done properly. Here's a pro tip: less is more when chipping, or chip less before overdoing it, because you can always add more to this effect, but once you do too much, it's very difficult to take it away. But it's okay to be a bit heavy-handed on the areas that will receive the most wear and tear, like this extra armor panel on the chassis of the tank here. Now follow up your Brigandine Brown with additional chipping of Shining Silver. Simply repeat the steps from before, but be a bit more refined with your application. Once done, we'll begin base coating some other areas on the miniature, like the tarps here with Prairie Ochre. And other details, once again with matte black, like the guns and tools. We'll use some more Shining Silver on the smaller details, like this bucket Stefan added, as well as the chains. Then we'll paint all of the wooden details with Dryad Brown. It's a couple more bundles of fabric on the back of the tank, and we'll paint these with Grotesque Green just to add a bit of variety. Then we'll base coat these skulls with Ancient Stone. Grab your Masterclass dry brush and dry brush more Shining Silver over the tank tracks. It's okay if you overbrush a little on some of the other parts in the tank, it will just add to the overall weathered effect. Next, we're going to add some shading to the model using Warpaint's Fanatic Soft Tone, thinned with a bit of clean water. When applying a wash to a miniature or model of this size, it's best to work fast and fluidly. And what I mean by that is keep your paint thin and have clean water nearby to help disperse the wash on the Mini, especially over those flat surfaces, while it's settling without allowing it to pool in any unwanted areas. For some of the more detailed areas, go back and apply a more focused wash to help add some contrast and structure to the piece. Now here's where the real fun begins. Our Dark Rust Effect paint from the Fanatic range is a hyper matte paint that has subtle texture to it for a versatile and realistic rust effect. You can use it right out of the bottle or thin it down with clean water, as Stefan has done here, and apply it almost like a wash. Right now we're focusing on the tank's tracks to add a bit of muddy grime to them. In addition, when thin like this, the effects paints make for great streaking products. Stefan is first applying a thin streak of the paint with a detail brush, and then using a regiment brush nearby, he will feather out the streak for some elemental effects. This really gives the tank an authentic and apocalyptically worn appearance. We'll apply more of these focused streaks again with Dark Rust, this time using a bit of stabilizer to thin it. There's no rhyme or reason as to where you should apply this effect, but anywhere there's a bullet hole, rivet, or hanging detail should give you a good indication of where to put them. Now let's watch as Stefan beats the absolute crap out of this tank. Weathering is all about layering, so to push this rust effect to the next level, we'll reinforce the rust using the brighter, more orange shade Fresh Rust, which features the same texture particles. Apply this to the deepest recesses and use the streaking and fanning method over top of the Dark Rust streaks from the previous step. If you want to add even more grime to your miniature, Oil Stains Effect Paint is a greasy, semi-transparent black paint that can be used for oil stains, grease pools, and as a wash to create oily metals. We're using it sparingly on the tools and other metal bits, as well as to reinforce the weathering effects across the tank. Finishing up, go ahead and apply a few highlights to the wood and cloth using Grotesque Green. And Adam and Vince have created a really fun game, and we urge you to check out Snarling Badger Studios and the Snarl Zine, where you can find everything you need to play a rousing game of Tanks for the Apocalypse. While you're out and about on the internet, be sure to give their YouTube channels a follow, which we've linked in the description below. And to learn more about the products used in today's tutorial and our full range of high-quality paints and accessories designed to make painting simple, fast, and fun, learn more at your friendly local game store, preferred online retailer, or at www.thearmypainter.com.